Hey, I want to clear something up. I want to talk about a misunderstanding that I believe is one reason our animal welfare system is so broken. And that misunderstanding is this: there is a big difference between a shelter and a rescue. And I think our general population doesn't get that. I think a lot of people don't get that. We use those terms interchangeably, and they are vastly different. So let me lay it out for you. A municipal shelter is taxpayer funded. Sometimes those funds are not sufficient, and the shelter does do some fundraising, which to me seems crazy because we don't ask the water department or the trash department to go out and fundraise to be able to do the job that they are supposed to do. A shelter's main purpose is public safety. They provide a service. They are supposed to catch and impound stray animals. That's because stray animals pose a danger to the public. They might bite, or they might attack, they might spread disease. The shelter holds those animals for a prescribed period of time, usually a legal stray hold, and that gives owners time to find their pet that's lost. If that time passes, then the shelter can adopt the animal out, can transfer it to rescue, or they can euthanize that animal. They may also house animals that are part of a cruelty investigation, or they've been confiscated or involved in a legal case. A municipal shelter takes in animals that have nowhere else to go. That is their job. A rescue, on the other hand, is privately funded. It's usually a nonprofit, and the mission of a rescue is to save animals. So the mission of a shelter is public safety, and the mission of a rescue is to save animals. Those are totally different things. What's happened over the course of the last 30 years or so is we have applied the same evaluation standard to shelters that we apply to rescues. We expect shelters with their limited and dictated budgets to function just like a rescue does. We expect them to save every animal that comes to them, but it is not their job to save animals. Their job is to protect people and provide temporary housing for animals that have nowhere else to go. Many shelters on their own have added to their purpose, and they do things like rehome dogs and cats and provide veterinary care and use fosters and transfer animals to rescues and even drive transports. But that is not their primary purpose. We need to remember that their primary purpose is to take all the unwanted animals that have nowhere else to go. Somehow, we seem to have forgotten that. Somehow, we have started to assume that a shelter is a rescue, and it is not. Rescues have unlimited budgets. They can raise as much money as they need to house and treat and rehome animals. Shelters have limited budgets dictated by some form of our government. Rescues can choose what animals they bring into their care. A shelter has to take animals that are brought to them by animal control or the police. A true municipal shelter will also take animals whose owners can no longer care for them. That's pretty black and white, but somehow it's become very, very gray. We expect a shelter to save them all, and when they don't, we condemn them. Here's the thing. Shelters need rescues. Here's what a rescue can do for a shelter. It can pull animals who cannot survive in the shelter environment, whether that's because of their age or their mental or physical health. They can assist with animals who have medical needs that fall outside the realm of a shelter's budget. They can work with the shelter to provide humane education for the public. They can raise funds so that the shelter can give preventatives and can alter animals before they go home. A shelter is not a rescue. A rescue is not a shelter. Shelters and rescues shouldn't compete for resources. They should share them, and they should build them together. What we need to figure out is how we can work together instead of demonizing each other. Many rescues started because they weren't happy with what the shelter was doing. Maybe they didn't think that they should be euthanizing so many dogs. Maybe they didn't like the kind of care they were providing. And that is the reason that they formed their own shelter, whether it's foster-based or a building. But what if those rescues didn't start up to compete with the shelter, but instead started up to help the shelter? If rescues worked with shelters to take in owner-surrendered dogs, we've seen that in several successful shelters that we have visited. Taking those dogs lightens the load for the shelter, and it keeps animals from ending up dumped, where they suffer worse and ultimately end up in the shelter anyway. If rescues worked with shelters to develop plans for dealing with things that they commonly see, like heartworm, like pregnancy, like needing to have an amputation, like senior dogs, then the shelter could act proactively when those cases arise instead of having to desperately call rescues and beg other organizations to help them in a case-by-case basis. I love when we visit a shelter and they have a rescue that is associated with them, whether it's an active rescue on its own or it's a Friends Up group, but they've got another nonprofit organization that's partnering with them to do the things that they don't have time to, or maybe they legally cannot do, like collect donations. That's a perfect win-win situation. Rescues and shelters can complement the work each other does, instead of what we see so often, which is a no-kill shelter that's a private rescue that is doing wonderful and is vibrant, and everybody goes there to find their dogs and they are like the heart of the community. And yet there's an animal control shelter out near the waste transfer station or the water plant where that shelter quietly struggles and is labeled the kill shelter. That model is not how we fix this. That model is how we stay stuck. Shelters and rescues working together to solve their community's animal crisis, that's the dream. But it's not the reality right now. If you are a rescue, take a hard look at how you are helping your shelter. And if you're not currently helping your shelter, then reach out and figure out how you can help your shelter succeed. If you're a shelter, take a hard look at how you work with the rescues in your area. What are they doing for you? And if they're not doing anything for you, then reach out and find a way to work together. The only way we fix this crisis is by working together, not by holding up the rescue yardstick to the shelters and declaring that they don't measure up. There's a way out of this crisis, and it's not by name-calling or demonizing or blaming. The way out of this crisis is for shelters and rescues to serve their unique purposes and then work together to save lives. We named our organization Who Will Let the Dogs Out because it's a question that we do ask, but I know who will let the dogs out. I know that we all will, once we figure out how to work together instead of against each other. If you want to learn more, visit whowillletthedogsOut.org, where you can read stories on our blogs of the visits that we've made. You can find new ideas on our resource guide, and you can download an FAQ that answers a lot of these questions that we are all asking about the current animal crisis, how we got here, and how we get out of it. So be sure to subscribe to our blog, where you'll get weekly ideas and practical solutions and stories of shelters who are doing it right and shelters who are struggling, and ways to connect so that we together can let the dogs out.